Hey guys, and welcome. I'm Morgan Giss McDonald, founder, CEO of Paper Raven Books, and I have with us today author Marisa Goudy. Marisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So this is the release of your new book, The Sovereignty Knot, A Woman's Way to Freedom, Power, Love, and Magic. I'm in love with this book. Who did you write this book for?
Well, the easiest, quickest answer is my 20-year-old self, because I was this girl bumping through college classrooms in Boston and in Galway and in Dublin, living off of Irish women's poetry, living for Celtic myth, living for these books that I could enter into and live inside. And truly said way back then, I wanted to write a book for me then. Though now 20 years later, I'm definitely realizing like I'm also writing this for my 40-year-old self too, because she needs it even more, because she's been through a lot more and she's kind of tired and the world isn't quite as unfolded for her as it is when you're a college student who just needs to get to class by noon. There's a lot more going on than there was then.
So what do you think are some of the essential messages that you have for women who are feeling this way? It's like, and I do agree, like it's maybe for those of us who've lived some of life and maybe life didn't turn out as magical as we thought it might be. What do you feel like we really need to hear, and what do you feel like this book communicates to us?
I think a lot of it is about making your own magic and recognizing that it isn't about losing hope that it's there. It's about realizing like, oh, this is a hugely co-creative process, because there won't be a day when I get all of a sudden swept up and every fairy tale comes true, or I'll just be able to live my favorite fantasy movie. It's instead that sense of like, it's the little tiny moments of everyday creative magic and spiritual magic that come through to really light up the mundane. And when you chain all those together, that starts to create a really fabulous life that's so much more than a fantasy life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you have this amazing sort of architecture of the book where you talk about, the sovereignty knot and sort of the three parts of self that we kind of go into is, the princess and the queen and the wise woman. And there may be different names for those, but can you talk to us a little bit about kind of what that framework is?
Yeah. So I describe in the book that originally the phrase came to me as slay the princess, crown the queen. And I realized that in writing it, no, it's never about killing off any part of yourself. It's instead freeing the princess so that she can go forth and roam, but come back to you, because you're always going to be a part of you. Crowning the queen, not necessarily because you want to be the absolute dictator of your own life and stay there forever, but because you do need to have those moments when you're really stepping into your power. And then also embracing the wise woman, which is that part of us that instead of locating that at the end of life and saying, oh, someday I'll be the crone in my little hut and I will drink tea and I will not care about anything. It's instead saying, oh, she's always within us too, that sense of real stillness and that sense of deep knowing. And drawing all three of those together all of the time. That's how I really see that knot, that we're constantly moving from one to the other, within the same day, within the same moment sometimes, because we need all these different aspects of ourselves to be in conversation with one another and to all be represented. And, because I think when we forget that any of one of those aspects exists, we really do it at our own peril. And we lose out on a lot of the magic.
Yeah. And honestly, when I first read the book, because I got to read it early, it gave me a whole new sort of lens to look at the moments. You said, earlier, the moments in my life, because it's a good way to not make yourself wrong for feeling the way that you're feeling. So certainly I would see certain moments where I'm like, I just want to do what I want to do. And it's like, oh, well, that's not wrong. That might just be, the princess part of you that just has that desire. Or there are moments where I really got to step up and be, the head of my household or the head of my company. And I just got to own, that role. And then there are some moments where I loved your description right there. I just want to sit with a cup of tea and be by myself for a while. And that's realizing and just seeing the different moments of my life gave me a perspective that helped me to not make myself wrong for having a reaction or a desire kind of within a particular moment. When you were writing out you also layer within this book some of your own moments, some of your own stories. What do you remember any of the stories that you shared in the book that were particularly powerful for you, kind of writing them out?
Wow. Well, in the book writing process, of course, there's a million stories that don't make it in. So all of the stories that did make it into the book are really, in so many ways, really core to who I am and who I've become. And some of that is because, losing my mom to a sudden heart attack when she was 60 and I was 31 and had my first baby was 8 months old, was a hugely pivotal turning point for me. But then there's also a story in it about I was driving in the rain and I accidentally ran over a snake. And it was one of those moments that could be a throwaway thing, but when you can kind of pause time and dive in, that had its own way of meaning for me as well. And in the story, I get into, my marriage, my and motherhood, and all those kind of little moments and big moments that get, thrown in between the mix of all that.
Yeah, I got to say, it's really helpful as a reader to be in a moment with you, and you're giving us the story, but you're also giving us the lens of how to think about it, and it makes it so much more powerful for us as the reader to go back to our own lives and say, oh, right, I mean, I can look at my life totally differently. So guys, if you're interested, if you're curious, paperravenbooks.com/thesovereignty knot. You can get a free copy today. The ebook is free today. So go ahead and head over there and grab a copy. Is there anything else sort of about the book itself that you feel like it has any particular powerful messages or meaning for modern women today?
I mean, it's funny, for modern women today, it's the ancient Celtic myths. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, that was me walking around the classrooms in Boston and Galway and Dublin and being so enraptured by these stories, and then going out to the sacred sites and to the, I talk a lot about the princess on the cliffs. I spent so much time on the Aran Islands just looking down over the edges of the cliffs. So there's that sense of being out in nature and being really connected to, whether it's your backyard, the snake down the street that you accidentally run over with your SUV, or it's the, going into this ancient mythic cave in County Roscommons, actually in chapter 2. That was one of those pivotal moments for me in being fully enveloped in the natural world and being aware of the ancient stories that swirl around in these places. I'm an American woman born and raised on Cape Cod, so in many ways, it's a sandbar. There are snack bars, there are beaches. The Native American history is long since faded from that space in almost every way. So that ability to be an American woman going over to Europe to reconnect with my own Irish heritage meant so much to me, just in sense of reconnecting to a piece of my soul, and also that real chain of human history, the chain of the foremothers who came before, and locating myself in that past and in the the ancient stones of nature really inform me in my everyday that I'm, here in upstate New York where, we've got a lot of old rocks, but it's not exactly like they're made into standing stones like they are over, in Ireland and Scotland.
That's so cool. Yeah. So anyone who has any interest in the Celtic culture, this is the book for you. Absolutely. So the writing process, you said that you'd intended to write this book for 20 years, that you kind of had the initial idea, when you're in college, but life happens, right? We have babies, we grow businesses, we are building families in our own lives. When did you kind of know that okay, the book is actually going to happen, in the next few years?
Wow. Well, it's funny because I have in my lap, because I always have in my lap, this is the journal that I've been carrying with me since I was 18. So every version of this story has been written in here. You change out the book, but there's always the leather bound.
I love that.
I really got serious about that. And I wish I could say there was an exact moment when I knew it's time. I had some shifts in my professional life that moved me out of working with other people and, trying to build a business with partners to really focusing on my own work. I'm a writing coach. I have an online writing group. There comes a moment when you have to also walk the talk and not just support other writers and say, wait, I won't grow professionally and personally until I have dedicated myself to what was really probably a 1.5 year long process in the most intensive writing around it. It was September of 2018 18 that I committed to 1,000 words a day. And my Instagram was just my calendar with my word count. And, I intersperse a picture in between because you want to make your grid pretty. But that was my really first powerful declaration of like, there's this book about sovereignty that I'm going to write now. And that turned into like, no, I'm not going to sit on the couch and, watch something with my husband until I had my 1,000 words written. And that 1 month, I, did kind of my own personal, what's the
NaNoWriMo?
Yeah, it was like NaNoWriMo September on my Outlander calendar because, I knew that I had to make that commitment. And once I had 30,000 words down, it was like, well, what am I going to do? Like abandon all that? Like I've committed to those words. I need to write the other, 150,000 it would take me to winnow it down to the final, 65,000 or so.
It's the curse of being a writer and a writing coach is like that you're for some reason not daunted by like, I'm just going to write 200,000 words and then just cut it down. But it's like, we all got to embrace the process that works for us creatively. And I love that you just like, I'm just going to go for it.
There was really no other way. Right. I mean, I've in writing, it was so funny. There was one point where I thought I was going to call this book, the subtitle was going to be a collection of 13 introductions because I just kept rewriting the first chapter over and over again. And I was like, oh, it's an essay collection. And, later I'm like, no, I was being a chicken. I couldn't commit, but I just kept like, what is this book about? And having to allow myself to start over again enough times that eventually I could blow all those up and said, here's my real beginning. Here's the stories I really need to tell.
I would love, like, for all of us who've attempted to write a book, how many of us could write a collection of introductions? It is like the consistent problem. It's like we just keep rewriting the introduction over and over again.
Yep. Is it a practical book? Is it a magical book? Is it my book? Is it your book? Whose book is this? I don't even know. And each version came out in its own introduction.
Yeah. Erin says, I've started the book and I'm hooked. Thank you for writing it. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you, Erin. Thank you.
So there was so I was kind of like, alongside a bit, we would connect occasionally and just sort of see how things were going as you were writing. And I, from the outside, was able to see a huge transformation in you as you were writing the book. Because I remember at first, like it was, you really felt like I have a profession, I have a career, I have a business around like copy editing or copywriting. Sorry, I'm in the book land still. Copywriting and working with clients in really concrete, practical ways. And I feel drawn to something that is like way outside the scope. Totally different. And there was a bit of like internal wrestling, like which book am I going to go with? How did you ultimately decide, like, I'm going to put a stake in the ground, I'm going to let this book pivot my trajectory? Do you remember kind of what that transformation process was like for you?
I mean, now I would put it that I look to the book. Like when I'm getting there's like kind of the amazing thing about carrying your own book in your hand is like, wait, what does she need from me? Because I am overthinking this. I am just rewriting in my head. I'm forgetting what's on the page. Like, how can I come back to my creation itself and learn from her? In the same way that, there's the Celtic goddesses in here that I try to turn to them and say like, all right, ladies, I'm done trying to think this through with my tiny human mind. Like I'm getting us all kinds of screwed up here. Big picture, inform me, help guide me through. But I sort of like your intuitive abilities are spot on right now as you're kind of like, so, you choose the very practical, I'm a writing coach, or you go with the big picture philosophical view. I would say, I'll be totally honest, I'm not, I haven't totally resolved that yet in the sense that I wrote the book that my soul needed to write. Like this is the work that's always been in my background. And like it's the magical stuff with a lot of practical things thrown in. Yeah. But then there is that question of how do I weave it into my, everyday professional life and say, hey, I don't really care if you are super into Celtic wisdom, but really it's a book about I want to invite you to write your own book. Like I want you to tell your own story. Because that's really a huge part of this too, is I hope to model what it is to share the stories that are most important to me, share the approaches to living that I think really work, and in order to open people up to find their own way. So I am still seeking a hybrid approach that says, I would love to draw you in with talk of Bridget and the Morrigan and the Cailleach. And if you have no idea who that is and you're only like, well, that's sort of interesting, but really, Marisa, this kind of archetypal all women thing is really cool. Or I love the writing prompts and what they got me to do. I'd love to meet people there as well. Yeah. So that is and isn't an answer, isn't it?
So can I dig in just a little bit?
Yeah.
So, okay. So the current business model, well, you have different ways of working with clients, but one of the ways is the Sovereignty Writing Circle, right?
Yeah.
So this is where you work with women in writing their stories, right? Do you also still do the copywriting and sort of that brand messaging stuff? You don't do that anymore.
No, so this book gave me permission to finally stop accepting copywriting clients. I'll do writing coaching with, people who are, healers, therapists, coaches. If I know that, so by the way, can we talk about your website and can I also pull a tarot card or two?
Yeah.
And be really open about the sense of I've got a lot of practical background, but please don't hire me for that. Hire me because you want the insight into what's going on in the background for you. What are those things that you want to talk about that feel like you're not allowed to lead with those, but they're actually the most important thing. That's your essence. That's your true offering, is the things that we can elucidate when we're able to draw on what's so purely and authentically us in the things that are harder to talk about because maybe they feel too woo or too out there or too personal. And then you recognize, of course, that's how you connect with other people, is by sharing that really personal, not intimate, but that sense of this is the essence of me. I can help you find the essence of you.
Yeah. I think it's a superpower, right? Because you actually are able to blend. Let's dig into your identity, who you truly are. You model that in writing this book. And when you marry that with the strategy of, your website, your emails, your social media posts, your own ability as a writer to write your own copy is going to be phenomenally uplifted, right? So there are lots of folks who say, well, I just want a copywriter to write for me. And they're not going to be attracted to this at all. But the people who are I just feel like I want to connect more deeply with my clients. I want my website to reflect me. I want all of my writing to really reflect me, but I don't know how to do that. Yeah. Well, then you're the person who can help them, marry their identity, discovery with their own messaging and writing, and give them their own confidence to write the website, to write the emails, to write the social media, to speak their message, maybe even on stage. So I don't know. I think it's a brilliant blend, and we'll lean into the pivot and see where it takes.
Yeah, I mean, now it's just that sense of this is what writing coaching maybe was a year and a half ago, and this is what the writing coaching is now. It's just more of me and me saying no, I'm, you sound like a great person. You sound very logical. I deal in spirals. We need, are you down with that? Because we're going to get to the straight lines. And I love talking about straight lines and spirals, right? But it's that sense of we need straight lines because that's how the words appear across the page, right? That is the structure of life. It's really important, but I don't want to start there. In the snarliest knots there are, because that's where the insight is. That's where the real differences are. That's where the stuff that makes you so excited to do what you do is hidden inside those knots.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. And so you had this, the wrestling with the writing and what's this book going to be about? And then you get to the point where you're okay, I think we are ready to edit and I think we're ready to publish. What was that transition for you? Because I imagine you felt like you could just keep writing forever. At what point did you decide, okay, we're gonna edit this baby, we're gonna publish this baby, it's coming out in 2020?
Well, I had a unique struggle in being a writing coach myself and having edited other people's books. It's that sense of well, do I need a me? Or can I do this myself? And, that gets us into scarcity, and it gets us all on the level of, well, how much can I, will I, should invest in myself in this, and how much is that my lack of confidence speaking? Yeah. And so that became an interesting kind of knot for me to untangle. I learned a lot in terms of when and where and how to ask for support. It ultimately, I love how, one of the greatest things I learned from this book was that sense of my 20-year-old self still has my back, to the degree that my final reader, who gave me some really powerful and important insights, was my Irish professor from when I was 18. Wow. She taught me my first class in the Irish language, and she herself is a beautiful, she's Harvard educated, PhD, master of Celtic studies and of writing and of magic. And so she was able to really get in with me and say, like, Marisa, you need to tell another story about Bridget. I need more about the Cailleach. I needed that sort of really intense expertise, because there was work I needed around like shaping of my story and making it clear, because we always need a second set of eyes that help us understand, like, wait, I don't, you went down a cul-de-sac here, or we need more of this, or, less of that. In my case, it was the sense of, Kate really helped me own my own scholarship in this, and realizing like, oh, right, like I have a master's degree in Anglo-Irish literature and drama. Like I get to really lean into that too, because this isn't just a memoir. This isn't just a book based on my 10 years of entrepreneurship. It's also based on, my own academic background. So it really was, but it wasn't easy to ask for help. And I definitely, would encourage everyone to find that kind of support, not self-servingly as someone who edits books myself, but just to know that in that process, like, whoa, there's a lot of trees and there's a forest and you have no idea which one is which. And there's a lot of words.
There's a lot of words. So true. So and this week, the book is launching. So you guys, paperravenbooks.com/The Sovereignty Knot. I've linked it up here in the description. Grab your free copy today. It's launching amazingly well. You've hit #1s in all your most relevant categories. People are showing up, leaving reviews. Thank you guys for reviews. And you're really, it seems like, getting a lot of, support from all sorts of places. What has this week been like for you?
It's been intense. It's been a huge lesson in receiving and being and allowing that. And, I'm like screenshotting everything, because I realize that my brain can't hold all the good in certain ways. And I'm trying my best. Like, one of my coaches always talks about the importance of, double down on your spiritual practice. And, that it's core to this book, but I hadn't even been near my altar in days because I've been so busy at the laptop. And so that sense of, wait a minute, how do I continue to ground into my own sovereignty, into my own sources? Like I've been, at least out, like it's been ridiculously warm here in the Hudson Valley. So I've been out walking every day and just like making sure I'm like, okay, breathe, like be with the trees, be with this misty, warm weather. And then now it's this, I think because halfway through the launch point too, it's that like, I cannot do all this on adrenaline alone. I need to really, double down and, find the crystal that I bought at the first bookstore that put me on their shelves. I bought this from Woodstock, New York, which is of course that iconic spot. And I'm remembering to hold this. I kind of got this as a talisman for this week. And I forgive myself that I forgot about the talisman until halfway through on Thursday.
That's totally fine. So looking back, now that you've kind of been through this much of the process, so what you've learned so far, what would you say to that younger version of yourself?
That you'll probably never feel like you've prepared enough, but you've prepared enough. And that it's really it's an act of radical trust that you are where you need to be, that, there's a lot that I did a hell of a lot of work to get to this point, right? Between writing the book itself, getting the right support from your team, gathering in my various circles of support, just different communities, and recognizing all the places in which, I've made an impact over my lifetime. I mean, it's friends from elementary school. It's, former colleagues from my day job. It's, all these different spaces, groups I've been part of as an entrepreneur, recognizing that all that mattered, and being, and just enjoying that. And instead of getting hung up on like, oh my gosh, I wish I had stop. Be here now in this. And as heady and amazing as launch week is, like, it's only the beginning. Mm-hmm. That's what I kind of keep trying to breathe into as well, of, I don't have to have it all figured out this week, because this book is going to be here on Sunday, even when it's not free on Amazon, but buy it, get it for free before then. This is a long-term relationship I'm in.
Yeah, it's the beginning. I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, Marisa. Thank you for sharing your heart and your message and your book with us. You guys grab your copy today. And any final words? Any other thoughts?
Free the princess, crown the queen, embrace the wise woman, be sovereign everywhere. I have a feeling that I know that phrase intrigues people. And I know that as soon as they start reading the book, it starts to take on meaning they didn't expect. And that's, I think, one of the superpowers of this book. Like, let's really talk about what power means in a different way. Let's talk about what magic means in a different way. Because they're real and they're tangible and they're much more gentle and much more profound than I think sometimes we give ourselves credit to understand in our everyday world. So I hope this book offers that to people.
Powerful way to end. You guys grab your copy today. Marisa, thank you for being here with us. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.